On air.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Drips and Tips. It is Monday, the 13th of October 2014, and we have a fair amount that we want to talk about tonight, but before we can do that, we have to run the titles. Andy?
Titles! Oh. Should I get the magic sponge? That's a keeper. Well, again. Oh man. Numpty. And that's a wrap.
So, hello. There's a few things we want to talk about tonight. We are looking at, we're going to follow on from what me and Andy were talking about last week with the kind of beginner's guide. We're looking at first generation, second generation, third generation. And I've noticed a few things this weekend that I want to talk about. We're also going to cover a bit more about third generation devices. And also we're going to have our very own Dave Dorn join us later on so we can talk about batteries and chargers. Because while Andy and I know the basics and we know how to stay safe, Dave Dorn kind of knows what he's talking about, so he's going to be discussing all that with us. So, first of all, we have my co-host, Andy. How you doing, mate? I know you've not been feeling well too.
Yes. I'm alright. Just not feeling very well tonight. But yeah, show must go on. Show must go on.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to talk first of all about. I've noticed a kind of change in trend of how people are using e-cigs. Now on Friday night, I took the family out to. There was a whole fun fair thing going on locally, so I took the family there. And the amount of people we saw walking around using e-cigs was ridiculous. And we're talking, there were hundreds of people there, and a lot of people were using e-cigs, but not one was a first generation or a cig-alike. They were all using egos and CE4s or CE5s. And I'm noticing this more and more now. Is this a trend that you've noticed? Are you seeing more and more people, because you work in a vape shop, obviously, are you seeing more and more people in the second generation rather than first generation?
Oh, yeah, I mean, the vape shop I work in is more geared up towards a new starter anyway. So that's all we sell. Literally all we sell. This weekend, just gone, I worked all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it was a pretty good weekend, and it was just ego kit after ego kit after ego kit after ego kit after ego kit. And as I'm walking through the town centre in the morning, you know, and I've got the big one, the 26650, call it the King Toby, I'm like puffing away. I'm noticing more and more people with a little ego kit set up in their hand, tooting away, and to the point of it's almost every other person.
Yeah.
Which of course makes my heart swell. It really makes me happy to see that, because the last time I saw that was about 2 years ago when I went up to a bike show in Manchester. Because at that time, it was the further north I went, the more I saw it. But it seems to be spreading downwards throughout the country, that just people are taking them up left, right and centre. And I'm getting everybody, all walks of life, from like students starting uni, who just want to get their work done and be able to have a smoke, so to speak, in their dorms, all the way through to, I had one gentleman, he must have been well into his 80s. He's just like, yep, it's time for me to give it the fags, but I don't want to quit nicotine.
Yeah.
And they're knowledgeable as well. That's the thing, these people are getting more and more knowledgeable as time progresses. Perhaps we're doing something right.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, like you said, people are knowing more and more about e-cigs. I mean, one of the funny stories I found on Friday night was when we parked up, I went to the parking attendant and gave him the money so we can get in. Paula and the kids went off, and we stood there waiting to get for his mate to come back with the change. And he stood there. He said, "Do you mind if I have a puff on this?" And it was an Ego C4. I was like, "No, carry on." And in my pocket, I had the e-cigs Supreme and the Delta. I didn't get it out. Yeah, that would go in a different direction. But
it's funny you mentioned this funfair thing, because I went to a circus here the other week, and it was the same there. The ticket attendant had a little CE4 thing, and I strangely enough, also had an e-cigs Supreme with Delta on it. And I pulled it out and I sort of went, "Hey, how you doing? Hello, monsieur. Ça va bien? I see you have an e-cig. I have an e-cig too." And we chatted. It was cool.
Yeah, well, I just chatted with this guy about what he was using and what juice he was using and how he was getting on with it. And he said, "Oh, I've been using it for a month now. It's fantastic." He still has the odd cigarette now and then, but he's found it to be so much more effective than anything else he's ever used. I thought, I'm not going to...
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not going to get my e-cig out now because I don't want him to think that, I'm just showing off or anything like that. I was like, "Oh, carry on, mate. I use an e-cig as well. Carry on. Keep it going." Well done. But when I was coming back, when we were about to leave, I had my e-cig in my hand as we walked past him to get in the car. And he stopped me and said, "Hang on a minute." He said, "Go on, wife and kids, go back to the car." He pulled me back and he said, "What the is that?" That's just an e-cig. He said, "I've never seen anything like that. What's the difference between what you're using and what I'm using?" So I just basically explained that you can change the power and all that stuff. And he said, "God, I've never seen anything like that before. I wish someone had explained things like that to me beforehand." And that's the kind of thing that we need, isn't it?
Well, it's something I do in the shop on a fairly regular basis. People obviously, because I don't use an Ego at all now, I normally bring a selection of devices to work. Usually my Hannah, my Tobe, my King, and sometimes I bring an e-cigs in as well. And the most common thing I get asked is, "Oh, you've got a big one, ain't you?" And obviously I'll make some sort of glib remark back. But that's where I get to sort of explain third generation as well. Interesting comment on third generation we've had here from Leanna Lawless. Local vape shops stopped selling cigalikes over a year ago. All Ego, some third gen, but won't stock high watts because the guy who works there frightens customers with the cloud chasing. I've done that. Unfortunately, I have actually done that.
That's a dangerous area, isn't it, when you come to cloud chasing?
Mm-hmm.
And that's
it's something I've really
do a little bit later on because it's a whole different side of vaping.
Mm-hmm. As a self-confessed cloud chaser, I can be an obnoxious numpty at times with it, just like sit there going.
Yeah, I mean, I can sit there and do it at times as well. Another thing that happened this weekend, I had an old friend that came round on Saturday night, and I've known him since I was 8 years old, Paul Sheen. And I'm going to try and get him on this show because he's just a top bloke. But he recently started vaping, and he was using Ego C or T, the little plastic tank things that you click onto the top. And he was using one of those.
Little cartridge type.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I haven't got one to hand to show people, but he was using that kind of thing. and he said he wanted to see the kind of
Isn't
stuff
that
I've got.
quite old tech now?
Sorry?
Isn't that quite old tech now, the old little cartridge things they used to do?
Yeah, it would be, yeah. But he only knew of Totally Wicked, which is where he got it, because we've got a shop in our local city centre. And that's where he got it from, and he had that, and he had a pipe as well, which was the same. You had to put the plastic cartridge in the top. So he had a look at all my stuff, and he couldn't believe the things you could get out there. So I said to him, right, you can have this, have that, have some juice, have this, and we literally spent the entire evening geeking out, talking about all the different types of e-cigs that are out there. And it was phenomenal to see. He was using that Ego T, I think it was. But when he started using a mechanical mod with a dripper on top, the difference, he said, God, the flavour, I can taste this. Oh, let me try this one, let me try this one, let me try this one. And he just went for it, and it was brilliant. I mean, is that the kind of thing you're seeing as well? Are you seeing people moving on straight from second generation to third generation, or is it a steady move?
I think, from what I'm seeing, and of course the majority of what I see is people starting with second generation nowadays. Whenever I pop up to see my friend's shop on my days off, oh, excuse me, oh, beg your pardon, terribly sorry, as I have said, I'm not feeling too great tonight.
You're excused, mate. I'll let you off this week.
Sweating like nothing here, I'll tell you. No, when I do pop up to see my mate Ollie in earshot, well, yeah, we had some guests from Scotland during the week, and my buddy Wallace, old friend of mine, known him for years, I managed to get him into vaping, and he's what I would sort of call, from our point of view, one of the lucky ones. He went straight into third gen because I had a load of gear, all my mates had a load of gear that we all knew, and we all contributed, to get him going. He's never tried a dripper or anything like that, and he's always a pretty sort of straightforward third gen. So, say something like SID or like a fairly commonly available mech. Then he got himself a Nemesis and a Mutation X with a 35 amp battery, fully charged by myself, and I saw that instantaneous look on his face of, whoa, that's just changed the playing field altogether. Yeah, I do see it, but probably not as much as most other people would, I suppose. But that's just purely because of my sort of positioning within the industry, I suppose.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I'm seeing a trend now of people completely avoiding first generation. They're not even bothering with the Cigalikes. I've been speaking to people who have tried the first generation, and they've said it was rubbish. And then they've tried an Ego, second generation, whatever it may be, and gone, hang on a minute, there's something in this. So while I believe there is a relevance for first generation for people who want a Cigalike like the 10 motives or whatever people are using.
Totally.
I think that retailers more and more are pushing the Ego C4 starter kits. I noticed there's one of our local shops has started selling the starter kits like that with the liquids and everything. And I think that's the way we should be speaking to people to get them to make that switch, if they want to do that. I mean, there is always going to be people who are happy with a Cigalike, and if they're happy with it, fine. But for people who have tried a Cigalike and it doesn't work, then I think we should be looking at that.
Well, as I was just about to say, Davey, the only time I ever really sell or suggest a Cigalike is for people who smoke next to nothing. You get those people who have the odd social fag, or like 2 a day or 3 a day. I sort of equate it into my head. If you're 5 to 10 a day, then you'll probably be on a fairly low strength e-liquid. But if you're less than 5, perhaps a Cigalike is more suited to that sort of person, because if they're smoking that little, then having an Ego could be bulky, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
These are the kind of people who will have a fag in the morning, go to work without any of it, never even a lighter, packet of papers or whatever, come back and think, maybe I'll have a cigarette after tea. And that would be the only sort of person I would push a cigarette to, because it would suit them more, if you follow my meaning. But then, as a comment's come in as well, actually, Really Man says, could people avoid first gen so they don't get accused of actually smoking indoors? We do have that aspect of first generation. They are cigalikes. So perhaps that's another reason why people are moving towards second generation in the first place, because they just don't look like fags. Simple.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I started, it was a cigarette. As you know, it was an e-light. But it was because I wanted something that looked and felt like a cigarette in the first place. And I was self-conscious of using something that didn't look like it. But then as I did the research and looked into it more, and I got the ego and found how much more effective it was, I thought, well, sod it. I'm going to use this, and if people have anything to say, they can say it. But I'm enjoying it, and it's a hell of a lot better than a cigarette is. And I want to go back to something. It was on Dave's show last night, when Dave Dorn did the driving thing, and he was talking about the 2030. I've actually got.
Let's not even go there, because
no, I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to, because it annoys me as well. This one, the E-light, 30 cigarettes approximately. Now, how approximately?
And that's per carton.
Because it's not approximately 30 cigarettes. It's approximately 5 cigarettes.
I wouldn't even go that far.
It's bollocks. It lasted 2 hours, if that.
Language. No. I'll tell you, mate. That whole 30 smokes in those carters. When I had the light, I was doing 3 or 4 of those cartos a day, if not in the evening at all, like completely. They were just ineffective, tasteless for the most part, and I think the only thing I can sort of big up on on the e-light is it kept my interest, because there was something that I knew could only improve.
Yeah,
it certainly couldn't get worse. But that whole 30 a day, I mean, when I was watching that segment last night with Dave Dorn, I was just nodding all the way through, like a nodding dog, because that just winds me up something fierce. It's the equivalent to 40 cigarettes. I used to smoke 40 a day, mate. No, it is not.
It's absolute nonsense, isn't it? Absolute nonsense. And that kind of thing needs to be cut out. And again, I agree with what Dave was saying about that. That hopefully with the advertising that comes in, they can stop that. Stop the comparisons with cigarettes and just say, right, it's an alternative to smoking. That's what it is.
And talking of ads,
talking of ads, yes, I think it's about time we should take the ads.
Joytech UK are proud sponsors of VapeTrails.tv.
Often imitated, never duplicated. Award-winning service and products from cloud9vaping.co.uk.
Vapers, do you love discovering new e-liquids? Tell Dripper the types of flavours you like and they'll send you 5 gourmet juices each month. Experience new and exclusive flavours, all with a money-back guarantee and free delivery anywhere in Europe. Dripper.co.uk.
And we are back. Right, so that's first and second generation, and I think we've pretty much covered everything there and the trends and how we're noticing a difference and stuff. So let's get back to third generation that we were talking about last week again. Andy, do you want to take that?
Well, I suppose I could. Third generation for the noob. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to vaping, you'll probably be wondering what third generation is. If you're not, well, let's help them along. Third generation. It's just a bigger e-cig, really. Much more effective again. And if you thought egos come in different shapes and styles, well, this one's going to really, really, boil your noodle. This is a third generation mod. This is a mechanical. It's a cheap and cheerful one.
Now, sorry, Andy, just to interrupt there, can you explain what mechanical mod would be?
Well, I was going to get to that. Davey.
I apologise for interrupting you.
I'll kick you in the foof. A mechanical mod. Inside this tube is a battery and a switch. That's it. No circuitry. The mod itself is a switch, basically. So all it is, a battery-containing switch. Now, if I do this, it's got a locking ring here on the bottom. The general style of these devices is often bottom button. That's the button there. You can hear it clicking away. I have another style, which is this one. This is my Smyrna one, and that's got a side button here on the bottom. You press that, and that's what makes that go. Again, it's mechanical, just a tube containing a battery. Here is a Tree Life, same again, bottom button, just a tube, and I've got plenty of them because I'm a mechanical fan. And you hit the button. Take a vape. Good old VG voice modulation there for you. And then we have things such as these. If the vape would actually clear. Sorry about this, folks. These are variable wattage devices. These go quite low in ohms and resistance, something you are going to have to learn, I think, if you're going into third generation territory. What makes these different from mechanical? They've got circuitry in them, which helps us do things like detect ohmage, resistance of your atomizer head, vary the voltage or the wattage so you can have a stronger vape. Or as I like to call it, hotter or colder vape. Now it's settled with the Vic, which Dave Kitson so eloquently put across last night. It is a bit of a lightsaber. It is a beast. I mean, the original drip tip made it come out to about sort of here somewhere. And it's a fairly simple interface, but it does require something of a learning curve because you've got to learn how to operate the device. Again, tube style, battery in there. That's the power head, atomizer on the top, larger again. I think the delta takes up to upwards of 6 milliliters. It's ridiculous the amount of juice you can get into it. But again, the operation is simple. Press a button, take a vape. Now, why do we need third generation devices? I have 2, maybe 3 answers for that. People who, like myself, were just getting... It was enough to use an ego, and we've used them again in the past, me and Davey, but, we wanted something a little extra, whether it's visually extra or efficacy extra. Obviously with variable wattage and variable voltage, and in the case of mechanicals with dripping atomizers, you get a hell of a lot more kick. The other aspect is some people just like being a show off. You're not right, Dave?
Oh yeah.
No, with either cloud chasing or whatever. There is another type of atomizer, which I'm trying to look. Here we are. In this level, and obviously you get your regular tanks, which act very much like your CE4, you know, but you can usually replace the wicks in them. So you get like a little unit similar to that. It's a wick unit out of the Delta tank. Oh, that's a good comment. And then you've got the dripping atomizers, which I almost constantly use, which is that style of atomizer. You just drip some juice into some cotton wicks and some coils that you build yourself. Again, we'll get to that in a second. Or you've got a Genesis style atomizer, which for a while was my preferred atomizer, mostly because I like to fiddle with things and shout at them a lot. Now, rebuildables.
Well, before you go into that,
okay.
Obviously, you prefer your mechanical mods. I prefer variable voltage, variable wattage. Why is it you prefer mechanical over VVVW? What is it about it that you get from it?
Dripping, cloud chasing. I mean, I can get the same results on the Hannah with the tugboat, and a lot safer, but I just like the simplicity of a mechanical mod with a dripping atomizer on it. The other thing is as well, you get all these guys who are running around. This is something that I've recently discovered. We may have to cross-reference with Dave, because I don't know the math exactly. But with your variable wattage devices, some going up as high as 100 watts now, if you get the coiling right on a rebuildable dripping atomizer, you could be punching out somewhere in the region of 200 to 300 watts through converted numbers and stuff that make my brain go, But for me, it's the simplicity of it all. You know?
Right, okay, because for me, I mean, I like dripping as well, but so many connotations to that statement. But when I got the Supreme, the Evic Supreme and the Delta, this has been the best tank I've ever used. And I've got this set at 19 watts. And for me, that is spot on for a good vape.
I'll agree with you, Dave. I think the Delta is the best sort of replaceable coil unit tank ever. It's amazing. It's got the adjustable airflow, which granted things like the Aerotank have as well. Is it 3 coils in it now? The tri-coil design, which is brilliant, and it's just perfect. It's brilliant. Interesting comment from Meridian. Out of interest, would you or me class a device like an iTaste VV or Vision Twist as a 2nd or 3rd generation? Now I know my answer, but I want to hear yours first.
I'd say 2nd. Personally, I'd say 2nd.
I would call it an advanced. I'd call it an advanced 2nd generation.
What? A 2.5 generation?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, generation 2.5. You're starting getting into that variable voltage territory, but you've not quite made the leap. So, like bridging the gap, as it were.
Which is what something we touched on last week. Because I've got a spinner here, and we touched on it last week, where you can just alter it until you get to the point where it's suitable for you and you like it.
Happy.
Yeah, exactly. You're happy. So yeah, probably 2.5. But in essence, I'm just dropping everything all over the floor. In essence, it is, I would say, generation 2, to be honest.
It's definitely generation 2, but certainly stepping in the right direction towards 3. It's like I call modding generation 4. You know, because you're taking the mechanical or the variable wattage device and literally making it your own. I mean, I've got a few bits and bobs that I'm building here. I occasionally dabble in homebrew, as it were. I don't really call it generation 3. I call it sort of either 3.5 or 4, because you're taking what's there in the bits and building it yourself. It's been called the hobby aspect, the enthusiast aspect, but you know, sort of to give it a colloquialism, I suppose, I call it generation 4.
Yeah, and that's something I would never go into. Excuse me. When it comes to modding and things like that, then that's far more advanced than anything I would ever bother.
It's
to be honest,
really simple. All you've got to do is just learn how to solder right and read circuitry diagrams, admittedly. But a basic mechanical mod is super simple. Hang on, I have one to hand. Here we go. This is my steampunk box mud, right? And that's the guts. That's it. 510 connector, battery caddy, switch. Let's see if this puppy still works. Actually, it's been stood up on the side for a long time. Memory serves, it doesn't like flat top batteries, so I'm gonna have to faff about with some batteries here a second.
But then when it comes to modding and things like that, it's not something that you would encourage man on the street to do, is it? Someone who's just looking for Generation 3 and they just want to start with VVVW. You don't want to say, oh, why don't you try a mechanical mod and make your own and do all that kind of stuff. That's something that comes a hell of a lot longer after you've started vaping.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's not... No, it's not for the beginner, no. Nice. I'd been using mechanicals and 3rd gen for at least a year and a half before I even decided to try. When it was the Torch mod episode of Tin Your Tit, and that's what gave me. Nah, it's dead, Dave. Dave.
Oh
it's dead.
Dear. Typical.
Oh no! Ah! Something I've built actually works.
It's alive!
I'm well happy with that. I ain't going to keep using it though, because it'll probably explode.
Yeah, that's another thing we need to talk about as well. Is the idiots.
Yeah.
Who are making stuff or using stuff and super sub-ohming coils, and that's a different show, isn't it? I mean, that's when we're talking about things like that and just general dickheads who are giving vaping
you're telling me.
Yeah. So we'll stay off that for now.
But
no, you talked about batteries there. We are going to be bringing in Mr. David Dorn shortly to talk about batteries and charging. I mean, as we've said before, Andy, you and I, we know the basics about what battery to use and what are the safer chargers, but we don't know the maths about it. We don't know the ins and outs.
That sort of information is quite easy to find. Just use a reputable charger. Like myself, I'm using the Nightcore i4, which has a good reputation. It's plug and play. You plug it in, it will take most batteries. It does all my 30s and 35 amp batteries fine. When I've put the batteries on the multimeter for basic testing, it comes up fine. More than adequate for my use. But you know, it's something I always say to new starters: Christ, for God's sake, use the supply charger in the correct manner. That is the best simplistic advice you can give.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Couldn't agree more. I'm thinking at this point, if we take the adverts a little bit early, and then when we come back, we can bring Dave Dorn in to talk about batteries a little bit more.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Okay.
That'd be good.
Yes.
I like that idea.
Co-op TV, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and e-liquids. Proud sponsors of vaping entertainment on Vapor Trails TV.
And we are back in the room. So as we were saying, we're going to talk about batteries and chargers and how to charge them properly and how to look after them. And joining us, we have the one and only legend that is Dave Dorn. Hiya Dave, how you doing, mate?
Legend. You're about right there as well, eh? Not so bad. You two enjoying yourselves tonight?
Yeah, we're having a good time. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent.
I'm dying.
Yes, it's tonsticles. It's terrible. Thank God it's just your tonsticles and not the other ones.
Yes. Also, just before we carry on, I'd just like to say to everybody, Dave Dorn for Christmas #1.
Dave Dorn for Christmas #1. Yes, we are setting up the Facebook site. We're going to get it all sorted. Dave Dorn is going to be doing a single, and we're going to release it on iTunes. You heard it here first, people.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a stitch-up. Don't believe a word those two buggers tell you.
Hey, we discussed it pre-show. You know you're doing it. You know it. Right, so batteries and chargers. Dave, can you give us a rundown of how to be safe when charging a battery and what kind of batteries to use and all that kind of stuff?
Well, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with Ego style, in other words, batteries that plug into a charging lead, that plug into a wall wart? Shall we start there?
Yeah, that'll be the best place, yeah.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. There are certain rules of thumb about all of this, and people get it in the wrong order. The first thing you've got to understand is that amps, current, is drawn. It's not pushed. And let me try and show you this if I can. I have here two iDevice chargers, right? This one is for the iPhone and it's rated at an amp, okay? This one is for the iPad and it's rated at 2.5 amps or 10 watts if you like. The thing is, you can plug an iPhone into here and it will draw an amp or half an amp depending on which model of iPhone it is. You can plug an iPad into this one and it will draw the full amp, but it'll take forever to charge and this will get quite warm. This, on the other hand, provides the proper USB 5 volts. It's the real IAM. It's a proper Apple-produced iPhone charger. It's tested, it's fused, it's passed all of the relevant bits and bobs. Other USB wall warts, though, that I have been sent at various different times include this one, which, if you've got one of those in your kit, you should never use. Why? Davey, you tell me why you should not use that. You should know.
I wouldn't be able to tell you why because I don't know about charging and stuff. I know I've got one, and it's got the adapter that you put onto it to make it a 3-plug, but it's wobbly as hell, so I've never used it.
Right, good lad. That's the reason why. This is built for UK. This is not. And it actually, although it seems as though it might be CE approved, it actually isn't a CE certified piece of kit. It's not safe to use in the UK. I've had this one to bits, and believe it or not, it is a pile of unmitigated festering dingo kidneys inside. It's dangerous. Okay? It should put out, because of that USB socket on, it should put out exactly the same as this one, which is exactly on 5 volts. This one, not even close. Doesn't do it. It's not right. Should not be used. So that's the first thing. If it doesn't look like it's proper British with the right size 3-pin plug, then don't use it. That's the power supply. That delivers 5 volts. The amperage is actually unimportant. What amps it delivers is unimportant. Other than to say, if this was rated for 10 amps, I'd be a very happy bunny, because An e-cig charge lead, such as this one, which as you'll see has a little LED on it that tells you whether it's charging and when it's finished. This one I've tested and it works perfectly well. I would use this on any Ego battery because all of the intelligent circuitry is in here. However, this is an important point. You can get, as we showed on the Here's Hour a couple of weeks back, you can get a charger that an Ego would plug into, but it didn't have a little light on, and it just passes the voltage straight through to the e-cig. Now, it should be the case that if you have a charger like this that has the intelligent charging circuitry in it, you should be able to use that with any Ego style battery, as long as the USB wall wart, the power supply that you are using, is up to spec. And I would say, seriously, these are, what is it, 12 quid a piece?
Yeah.
That's 12 quid worth spending, because it's not going to go wrong. You go and get something that looks like that off your local market that's costing you 2 quid, it's not going to be good.
So, in that case, the Ego battery itself, that doesn't have the cut-off point in it. It is actually the charger that would be controlling the power running through.
Well, this is the trouble. Some of the cheaper Egos have no charging circuitry in the battery itself. Again, if when you screw it all together to charge, if there's no little light comes on the battery, it has no charging circuitry, and it's waiting for the charging lead to do the work for it. If your charging lead has all of the intelligence in it, it doesn't really matter what's in the battery. Although I've been talking with Tom Pruin at the seat of the day. We had quite a conversation on Twitter, and in actual fact, every step in the charging chain, if you like, should have some level of protection, as in your power supply should be regulated to 5 volts output at the USB socket. That's the USB standard. That's where it should be. And that should not vary by much more than 0.1 of a volt. So that's the first step. That's got to be right. The next step is the charging lead itself. That needs also to be regulated, and it should really put out 4.2 volts to be right. But when it comes to the battery, to the Ego style battery, or whatever battery that's going to screw into that 510 connector, that should also have intelligence in it. The ideal is a situation where it senses the voltage coming out and will refuse to charge, and will in fact switch everything off if it's not getting the right voltage, whether it's over voltage or under voltage, because under voltage is as bad as over voltage. And it should also have a current limiter in the battery, so that if something goes wrong at the battery end, the actual battery end that's in the tube, if something goes wrong there, the current limiter can keep the current down, because it's actually going to be down to this bit, the charging lead, and the battery itself as to how much current it draws, how many of the 2.5 amps that are available in here. That's not down to this. This doesn't push it. Right? It's right. In fact, if you consider this to be the mains, the water mains, and in there is the tap, and that is what allows the current through. So if that goes wrong, and it pushes all of, or allows all of the current to get to the e-cig, and the e-cig doesn't stop it, then yes, if it gets too much current or too much voltage, which is much more likely, if it gets too much voltage, that's when it all goes horribly wrong. But to put everybody's mind at rest, both Gary Dibley and I tried for weeks on end to get a battery to go postal, and we ended up bashing nails through the bloody things, and we still couldn't get them to go pop. So although there is a risk, it's very, very small if you follow some simple rules. And the simple rule is, if your battery is provided to you with a charging lead, use that charging lead with that battery. And if that means you've got to put a piece of tape across and write on which one it's for, so be it. Use the one that's supplied. If one isn't supplied, then make sure that you've got one, and I'll show you on closer up your camera again. Use one that has this little LED on it that goes red and green, or whatever colours it goes, to show you when it's charging and when it's finished charging. And watch it, get used to what it needs to do, and it'll be absolutely fine.
And yeah, and I'd say the second rule there is exactly what you said before, where spend a few extra quid and get a decent charger if you haven't got one.
Absolutely right.
Absolutely.
If
I may interrupt.
Go for it, Andy.
Sorry, David. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're having trouble with chat roll, apparently a refresh does fix it. Okay, so just give it a little quick refresh, and you'll be back being able to comment. Sorry about that, guys.
It's all right, mate. Cheers, Andy. Right, so moving on then to third generation and charging your batteries and what kind of batteries are available. Dave, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, yes, lithium-ion batteries. There's a whole host of misunderstandings about these. In an ideal world, a battery such as either of the ones I've got here or any other size lithium-ion battery should, in a charger, the charger, when it gets to the end of the charging cycle, should switch off altogether for the channel that that battery is in. It can sense the voltage, it can read it passively, it doesn't need to pump any current in to do that. And if the voltage drops in the battery below fully charged, then it can switch back on and give it another little charge cycle. There are some battery chargers out there that don't do that, that continue with a small, almost a trickle charge, and they're not good. Again,
I had one. Sorry to interrupt there. I had one. It was one of those, like you showed before, with the 2 pins you plugged into an adapter.
Yeah.
And I put the battery in, and you could hear it fizzing. And as soon as I could hear it fizzing, it was like, nope, not going to use that one. Chuck it away.
Well, exactly right. I mean, your own common sense tells you, really, if something doesn't look or sound right, it probably isn't. And given the amount of energy that these things can store and the amount of damage they can cause if they do go postal, it's not worth taking any chances.
Exactly, yeah.
By the same
Here's a
token,
quick question.
Yeah.
Got a question here. What's the maximum life expectancy of, I suppose, an average lithium-ion battery before you should stop using it? Presuming you've treated it healthily.
Oh, well, that's sure. How long's a piece of string? I mean, if you're using,
I was going to say the exact same thing.
If you're using it in a mech mod, as you do, Andy, you know yourself with a given battery. If the performance starts to drop off, get rid of it and recycle it. I mean, look, let's be honest about this. You're not going to pay much more than 12 quid for a top-end, high-class, super-duper, bells and whistles 18650. If you're paying any more than that, then somebody's having you on. By the same token, if you are paying less than £5 for an 18650, you have to wonder why.
Yeah.
Right? And it might seem a great idea. Oh, they've got them on eBay at £3.50 for 10. I'm going to have them. Well, don't be surprised if it doesn't perform well. Don't be surprised if it doesn't charge properly, and don't be surprised if one of the 10 goes bang, because it's too cheap.
That's one thing I always tell my customers, though, Dave. They're like, "Oh, I've seen them on eBay for like $4.99." I'm like, do not, for God's sake, because you don't know where. I mean, when I got the 26650, I went straight to my bud Ollie, who knows what he's talking about and sells decent quality, and I got my 26650 E-Fest for 10 quid. So, you know, I know it's a quality battery, I know where it's come from, I can trace it if I wanted to, if I was clever enough, and I know that battery is going to be cool. Sorry about that, Dave.
No, it's fine. I mean, the whole thing about, there was a thing on Twitter today where showing you some CCTV footage of a woman replacing a battery in a mobile phone, and for whatever reason it went postal. They said it exploded. It didn't. It burned. It went postal, and it caused a hell of a lot of bother with the folks that were on the bus. They all got off, including the driver. I hope they only put the handbrake on. Lithium-ion batteries store a lot of energy. The number of them, the quantity of them that goes postal is very, very small in percentage terms. Much, 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 much less than 0.1% that would actually go postal. The problem is when they do go postal, they cause a lot of problems. They are really, really hot. Lithium burning is not nice. And although there's not a lot of lithium in a lithium-ion battery, there's enough to release a hell of a lot of energy and some pretty nasty caustic smoke, fumes, stuff like that. It's not worth buying cheap. I know everybody goes around looking to get tuppence off and threepence off, but seriously, think about it. You know, you're going to go through, hell, I go through a lot of batteries. I use a lot of batteries. I vape a lot. But that Panasonic I've now had for 2 years, and it's still working perfectly. And I'll probably get another year out of it. But when I replace it, I'll replace it with a good battery, and I don't mind paying 10, 12 quid for a good 18650 because I know the good ones last.
It's also like, just noting a comment here, Gary Dibley has said, pulling batteries from dead laptops for a cheap supply of 18650s is not a good idea.
No, it's not. It's far from a good idea. They've got none of the protection and none of the testing that you should be entitled to expect when you're buying 18650 for vaping with. It's just not a good idea. Do you want to take Elemental's comment as well, Davey?
Sorry, I can't read it from
I got it, Davey.
Oh, good man.
Also worth noting, some kits come with cheap batteries and cheap chargers that weigh next to nothing. These are to be avoided. Don MM also says it is possible to measure the capacity, that's the milliamperage I'm presuming, the life of the battery in a device. If it drops below 80% of nominal, toss it.
I would agree.
How would you measure the capacity?
Well, you've got the ideal tool sat in your hand at the moment, Davey. Something like an e-cigs Supreme measures the voltage of the battery as it goes in. By the same token, if you're using only mechs and you would normally get, let's say, 8 hours out of an 18650, and you discover one day, hang on, I'm only getting 6 hours out of this now. Battery's goosed, chuck it. It's
a good idea is to get yourself a multimeter. You can pick them up relatively inexpensively. Get a good one, of course. Don't go and buy one for £5 off eBay. Get a decent one. Various high street stores, well, I say high street, more like industrial estate stores that sell them, reasonable price, and you'll be able to tell from those.
There's a whole show in the technology behind troubleshooting your batteries and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's been a lot of publicity, and a lot of the ants are trying to make hay out of the dangers of e-cigs batteries, just to put your mind at rest, a bit like Crime Watch, so you don't have nightmares. 99.99999% of the time, there isn't a problem. The outfits like Asita are testing batteries and testing chargers and testing wall warts and testing all kinds of stuff, and they're making recommendations to the manufacturers. There's going to be a standard set for what should be occurring, and that will be a good standard. There's really no need to worry. You just need to be a little bit careful about how you go about things. And the easy answer is, if it's got LEDs on it, it's likely to be all right.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a story today, hasn't there, that I think Matt is covering tomorrow night's show in The Sun about another exploding e-cig battery. And it's just, you read it and you think, Jesus, what are these people thinking? What are you doing? It's common sense at the end of the day. Look at it, listen to the charger. If it doesn't sound right, if it's not working right, don't use it. Simple as that.
Yes.
And on that note, gents, we're coming towards the end of our hour. And the ubiquitous rest of the week announcements, Mr. Davey.
I'll tell you what, Andy, seeing as you're feeling like crap tonight, you can do it.
I hate you.
You love
right.
me.
Of course, there is a full week of vaportainment, and it goes a little something like this. I need to find a little bit in our chat here. Right. If we want to do, we've got some ads to play out, so we'll do them first, and then we'll do the week's lineup. Okay, just take them ads right now.
RY4 Radio.
And that be that. So, there, of course, you've got RY4 of the week at 10 o'clock now, obviously, because we're back. Except on Friday with Tim Boniface. Now, a quick mention about Tim Boniface. He's got Dr. Konstantinos Farasilinos on this week for some Q&A. That's going to be a good one. So, what have we got for the rest of the week here? Well, tomorrow night we have Gary's presenting Vapor Scene. And I believe he's got some VT and stuff that's going to be very interesting. And then, of course, we've got Matt with a show with no name on Wednesday, and I believe he's going to be looking at the Sun article. And of course we have our very own David Dorn with Top Pocket Keith on Thursdays with The Haze Hour. And of course Saturday Night Shenanigans should be returning to your screens at 9 PM. Excuse me. And finally, I'd like to make a quick announcement of the return of Fury Fest. Fury Fest 4 is organised. It is on the 26th of this month. It is in Gloucester because we're going on tour at Spa Vapes, 54 Westgate Street. Any questions, don't hesitate to contact me at all, and we'll sort you out. Okay? Anything else, guys?
That's cool, man.
I'll do it better than you.
Yeah, shut up. That's what you keep saying.
Even when I'm ill.
Whatever. And all that's left for me to say tonight is...
Spider!
Shut up. All right?
Can I butt in? Let me butt in, Divvy. Divvy, let me butt in. Let me butt in, Divvy, let me butt in. Yeah, let me butt in.
No.
You missed my mate out. Andy missed my friend out, my namesake, my little buddy, my friend, my pal.
Go on.
What?
Mr. Kidson's back on Sunday.
Yeah.
No, you screwed up, Andy. Yeah, you do it better than me. Yeah, okay.
Well, I still do it better than you. I just forgot DK, which is weird because DK's on Sundays, 9 PM till 10. So go watch that as well, I suppose, with his sort of Wolverine beard.
Yeah, that was quite weird. Looking like that, wasn't it?
When he came on, I was like, "Who the hell is this?" Oh, it's David with the beard. I don't like it, David Kitson. I don't like it at all. It's strange and unusual.
Anyway, thank you everyone in chat for watching. Thank you anyone who's watching on demand. Andy, thank you for coming on. I know you've not been feeling well. I hope you get better soon. And Dave Dorn, thanks for joining us and explaining everything.
You is quite welcome, Bunny lad. Happy to be here and do things like that. Because I'm special.
And that's going to be the Christmas shop. Okay. Thanks very much for watching. We will see you all next week. See you.
Bye-bye.